All right. Good evening, all you gurus. I'm stoked. I got a good buddy here, Dr. Sukhi Muker, real special guest. He's an extraordinary man, a phenomenal chiropractor, a great dad, and one hell of an athlete. And we are going to pick his brain tonight about peak performance, how to get the most out of life, and how to really maximize our time here on the planet. So without any further ado, Sukhi, welcome to the program.
Awesome, man. It's great to be here, Norm. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
absolutely. This is a
And,
real treat.
and thanks for having me at a special time.
Absolutely, for sure. We our typical time is 6:30. We're having this on at 8:30, and yeah, truth be told, this is past Suki's bedtime,
It
but
is.
he's been able to get some quality family time in,
Yeah.
and that's awesome. That's great. I
Yeah.
know that family is really important to you. So as we get started here, I want to remind everybody who's tuning in that as much as this is a conversation between Sukhi and I, we are all connected to the same field, and we're all part of this. So as you're dialing in, I'd love to hear who's on board. I'm seeing a lot of people tuned in already. That's excellent. So just throw your name in in the comment section and where you're tuning in from tonight. This is going out around the world. Pretty exciting. We got people from all over the place. I see. Kate's on board. Who else is on there? Leslie, awesome. Who else is on board? Throw your name in. So Sukhi, I've known you now for going on 18 years. Isn't that incredible?
I was thinking about that today. I couldn't believe it. I was doing the math. I was like, wow, we met in 1999.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, do you remember when we met?
No, go ahead.
Toga party, orientation week, CMCC, August 99.
There you go.
First
That's
time we
great.
met. We're both
It's
wearing
great.
togas.
Uh-huh.
And to put that in perspective, at chiropractic college, we have orientation week the first week, and I think it's like the first or second night. There's a toga party put on. I think it was by Friends of Chiropractic. There you
Yeah,
go. That's where we
that's
met
excellent. That's
first
great,
time.
man. For sure. Was I wearing underwear that night?
Probably not, but I don't know. I can't confirm that.
Oh goodness, that was my would have been the year before. It was the first toga party that I ever went to. I went up to the SRC president, who was
Right.
Laura. I forget her last name now. And hey, Laura, I'm not wearing any underwear tonight. Oh goodness. Anyways, I didn't think I'd be talking about the toga parties tonight. So I know you well, and I know a lot of people tuning in here tonight, you might be new to them. So I'd love to hear for you to share a little bit of your backstory and how you got into chiropractic and just a bit about where you've been from.
Sure. I'll give the really, really short version. You know, I was raised on the other side of the tracks. So what that means is, you know, I was really immersed in the life of crime, violence, and drugs. And I sort of, you know, people have midlife crises. I had my, you know, 1/10 life crisis when I was 18 years old, where I hit rock bottom. And, you know, it's fascinating because all through my 20s, I never shared that story with anyone because I was still integrating and healing through it. And it wasn't until my 30s that I really came full circle with the whole thing and really went public with it. Because I was kind of ashamed, you know, of the life that I had, the life I lived. But, you know, I'd almost came to a place where I was 18 where the thought of leaving this world was far more appealing than actually staying. So that's what I call my rock bottom. That by far had been my greatest challenge. However, it's also been my greatest gift and my greatest blessing, and helped me develop some really cool ideas in life. And, you know, I spent almost 11 years in post-secondary school. And a lot of the answers, I'd say, Norm, that I was looking for in terms of understanding health, healing, human potential, why we do what we do, why we make the choices we make, were not being answered by our traditional Western healthcare system and our traditional Western educational system. And so I really supplemented my education with my own education, which was really based in a lot of physics and quantum physics, because I believe that gives us the best worldview of understanding and, you know, why we make the choices we make, how that affects our perception of reality, primarily our brain and nervous system. You know, I go as far as saying, I feel like I've been studying the brain and nervous system for over 2 decades. And as a result, developed some really cool ideas over the years. And most importantly, why I did what I did, why I made the choices I made, and how I ended up where I ended up, and how I've ended up to where I am today and how I'm moving forward today. So, when I went to chiropractic college, it was this really cool, holistic, philosophical thing about how we support the healing process and how we really help people to function innately the way we're designed to. Full story with that. I happen to go to a school, which you went to too, in which the message was very different there. And I was like, what am I doing here? I think I'm at the wrong school. So much so that a lot of people don't know this either, only those close to me, that I actually wanted to drop out my first year because I had really no interest in the ideas and concepts, because they threw us into this mechanical model and gave us post hoc explanations of why people have symptoms, sickness, disease that I could poke holes through that made no sense, yet, they called it science, if you will. And so as a result of that, I ventured off and learned about this other side of our profession in chiropractic, principled chiropractic, the concepts of vitalism. And then my heart sung and I knew I'm in the right place. I was meant to do this, because the irony is that, I studied quantum physics for over a decade before I went to chiropractic college. I was into vitalism before chiropractic college, and I went to chiropractic college to get more of that. But through the school, I got less of that. And what I say is, today, on the other side of it, I'm super grateful I had that education, because an awesome Western medical education. And I was able to supplement that with all these other ideas and concepts, which I believe create a beautiful, beautiful foundation that allowed me to serve people, in my practice and outside my four walls too, as, a speaker and author and trainer and coach and all the things that I love to do. So that's a short version.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yes, I went to that same school as well. And I know whatever they weren't feeding us just made us hungrier. And you and I both, we traveled so much, to Colorado, down to Atlanta to go see our speakers and go to the different workshops. And I look back at it and I think, man, it was amazing to see just how committed we were back then. We were, in love with the principle, and we weren't being offered it in school. Yeah. And we went to great lengths, absolute great lengths to go and find it. So something that you and I both have in common is our love for vitalism. That's something really near and dear to my heart, and a key component of the program, My Inner Guru. And I'd love to hear your perspectives on what vitalism is. I know this is a big piece in Vitalistic Masters as well. So can you share with our listeners what vitalism is all about? Yeah.
So, the classic definition of vitalism is the whole is greater than some of its parts. And a mechanistic worldview is that everything's separate. It's like, we are a walking automobile, if you will. It's like, you got a flat tire, fix a flat tire. You don't have to look under the hood. You don't have to fix the transmission, the oil, et cetera, et cetera. And that's accurate when it comes to an automobile. But, if something's going on with me, an ache, pain, symptom, sickness, depression, sadness, it's like, well, what happened last night? Did I fall in love last night? Did I get divorced last night? Did a loved one pass away? Because guess what? That's going to influence my physiology. It's going to influence my endocrine system. It's going to influence my hormonal level. It's going to influence how I sleep that night and who I show up as. And the reality is, no aspect of our entire life can be separated from our health and well-being and our vitality. So, whether it's your physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual health, your family, your career, your finances, your quality of life, your character, your social life, all these aspects, I divide life into 10 areas. And I'd say that those 10 areas, and some you do 5, some 7, 10, whatever it is, just know that every aspect of our life influences us. And that's really, for me, a primary principle of vitalism.
Absolutely. And so how does this fit into your practice? Is this something that you're teaching people? I'm thinking of your clients. Is this like day one that you're walking them through this? Are you taking them on like the wheel of life?
Wheel of life, yeah. When I'm really big on a concept I call value-based communication. So I'm always about serving and meeting people where they are. And I mean, if they're stuck in their pain body, I want to meet them there and I want to see where they are and then move them one step forward. So, to blast someone between the eyes of these big ideas and concepts and principles when they're not ready for them is actually just an ego trip on my part and a disservice to them. So how do I serve where they are? And for me, it's understanding exactly where they are and where to move them forward. My actual active practice is, as we talk about, is dealing with the brain and nervous system and how there's an inability when we have stress or patterns that we can't process. It's almost like those experiences lock into our brain nervous system and they get locked in the original trauma of those experiences. And if we don't process and integrate those inputs, then all of a sudden we can't thrive and we're stuck in survival mode, flight or flight response. So, my goal and intention as a vitalistic chiropractor is simply to help people's nervous system, master control system, become aware of those unintegrated experiences that allows the integration, self-healing, self-regulation, but more importantly, it allows us to grow and evolve because from a quantum physics perspective, we're taking particles from that input and increasing it to our core frequency, expanding our consciousness, expanding the way we look at the world, being more connected to who we are and becoming more whole. It's like I said, my greatest challenge has been my greatest gift, and it's only a limitation of consciousness that's not going to see that that challenge is actually a gift because it's going to allow for more growth and more evolution, which I think is a fundamental principle of why we're here. So obviously in my practice setting, I have a hands-on approach where I work people through that. But, I have a book, and with my book, it's all about how they can develop strategies and tools that they can do on their own to really support themselves through that. And I'm huge on seminars. I'm big on supplementation. I'm a mixer, make no mistake. I'm vitalistic, but I'm a mixer because I believe in mindset. I believe in nutrition. I was an ultra endurance athlete for over a decade. So I'm huge on movement. I'm big on decreasing the stress and toxins in your life. And that includes people, places, and things and wireless technology. I'm breaking one of my rules here. Digital sunset is what I always do. So I turn off all technology at night. You probably noticed, Norm, it's a bit hard to get a hold of me. And that's why, because, truth be told, I am addicted to my iPhone. And I think we all are. And science is crystal clear that the more times that we spend on that, we're actually frying our brains and nervous systems and getting stuck in these neural patterns that actually aren't moving us forward. So a big piece with me is when I look at life is, what can I do every single day to move forward in my life as opposed to move back? And I began that journey, over 2 decades ago, and really in the past decade have refined that into develop a level of leadership and mastery in that, so much so that it's now moved to like every moment of my life, what am I doing to move myself forward? What am I thinking about? What am I focused on? Do I have a heart of gratitude? Am I seeing through the eyes of compassion, empathy, and love for other people? So it's, how can I show up as the best version of myself? And so one of the things that I'm big in education is about, to have a great day actually starts the night before. What I do the night before plays a huge role of what happens in my next day. So really doing my deep work, my inner work, my core work in the times that allow me to build a foundation. Because I always say, it's not, if challenges or stress or curveballs show up in your life, it's when they show up. And when they show up, the more resilient and the greater stability you have from a solid foundation, the more you're going to move through it with ease, grace, and flow. So, these are just some of the concepts and ideas that I put forward to the peeps that I work with. It's never about getting rid of aches, pain, symptoms, sickness, and disease. I tell people that aches, pain, symptom, sickness, disease is simply your system moving away from equilibrium. And it's a tap on the shoulder inviting you to get back on the path, back on the journey of self-growth, self-evolution, the greatest expression of who you are. Because, I believe every single person is different. We look different, we talk different, we appear differently. Each and every single one of us has this beautiful song to share with the world. And if we're not doing that, the universe in its beautiful perfection is going to start to tap us on the shoulder because we're not growing, we're not evolving, because we're not integrating and embracing what life is throwing at us. So it's going to ask us to slow down and look at those things. And so for me, it's that education piece to be like, I know this sucks. I know you're not happy with this, but I promise you, once you process, integrate, and heal through this, you're going to be so grateful you're on the other side of it. So it's about supporting people on that journey. And I say that as we move through, as we increase that connection of life force through our nervous system and our brain to all 100 trillion cells, we move to homeostasis, we move to equilibrium, we become more resilient, and a positive side effect as functioning the way we were designed to function is that aches, pain, symptoms, sickness, disease tends to go away. But it's not the goal or intention to treat or fix the symptom, sickness, and disease, because the way that our healthcare system has put symptom, sickness, disease on the shelf, it's way more sophisticated. It's way more complex than that. And I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know how to fix or treat any of those conditions. It's like the system's so complex and multifaceted. Who am I in my finite mind to be like this amazing intelligence that coordinates millions of functions every single second? I'm superior than that. It's like, we know how amazing and intelligent the body is. So I just want to support the master control system, the body, to do what it's designed and shift people's focus, attention, intentions on moving in the right direction and being on the path and journey, as opposed to trying to get out of somewhere, which is actually a gift, but because of limitation of that awareness or perception, they can't see it in that moment.
Beautiful. I love it. And so the echo will end in a second. There we go. Excellent. So I want to pick your brain on a couple of things here. Number one is about your performance and getting prepared. You talked a lot about preparation. You touched on the night before, the morning of. Is that something that's ritualistic for you? Do you have a preset, something that you go through, or is it something that you more tune into your own innate in the morning and really tune into what needs to happen? How regulated is it for you?
For 14 years as an endurance athlete, it was 100% dialed in and regulated. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old daughter. And so when my eldest daughter, Indira, turned 2, I stepped away from endurance racing. So that was 2 years ago. So what I'll say, in the last 2 years, it's been a lot less regimented than it was for almost 14 years. However, what I'll say is in the past few months, I'm now moving back to that because I see I thrive. It's like a year and a half gave me perspective, and I know that I wasn't showing up as potent and powerful as I could be as Sukhi, but also I wanted to honor being, the extraordinary husband, extraordinary father that I wanted to be, so I couldn't be as regimented. So I was in this phase. And now with a 1-year-old and my wife and us, having visions for our life, visions for our family, I know what it takes for me to be the absolute best. And what I'll say is, yeah, I was so regimented. I mean, I'd be in bed by 8 p.m. every single night. I'd wake up before 4 a.m. with no alarm, naturally just wake up, and I'd start my routine. That would consist of exercise, visualization, journaling, meditation every single morning, no matter what, non-negotiable. And here's what I'll say, Norm. You said something really interesting there. Is it based on how I feel? And this is what I'll say. In life, we have values and we have emotions. When we are connected to who we are, our emotions fuel us and our emotions move us forward in the direction of our dreams and values. The challenge is that sometimes we're not connected. And when we're not connected, usually we don't know that we're not fully connected. And that's when our emotions deceive us. And I'm living proof of that. People talk about, I didn't feel like doing it. Well, you know what? up until I was 18 years old, I had addictions. Well, guess what? I felt like doing drugs. I felt like doing those things. And I could easily justify, well, I was just being guided by my innate. And I'm like, well, I was disconnected. So as a result of that, my emotions were like looking for the next fix. And that's why I say we live in a society where we're addicted to our phones, the internet, TV, sex, drugs, alcohol, and we also justify it of how, well, no, I'm just being guided to do that by my feelings. It's impossible to stay 24 hours a day, 100% of the time connected to who you are, because we cannot release dopamine and serotonin at a constant drip 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's going to stop flowing. When it stops flowing, we're going to feel less connected. For me, that's a signal to get back on doing my deep core inner work. So the crappier I feel, the more I do my inner work. And that's when I default to my values. And I'm sure my biggest value, me, is number one, my health. Because if I lose my health, then my number 2 and 3 go out the window. Number 2 is my family. Number 3 is my service and how I contribute to really, I look around, Norm, and this is not the place I want to be raising my family. This is not the world I want my girls to raise in. So rather than that handcuffing me, I default to saying, so what am I doing to change that? What am I doing to make this world a better place? And that's what allows me to roll up my sleeve and be so connected to my journey. So for me, 90% of the time, I choose my behaviors based on my values, not my emotions. Because my emotions, do I feel like, when I get up at 3:45 a.m. or 4 a.m., and, you look around me, like right behind me, I got a treadmill, I got my bike. I hate my treadmill. I can't stand this thing. The reason why I got it is because it honored my number 2 value, because I realized that for me to run where I need to run from where I live here in West Vancouver and get down to the seawall, I would pretty much in commuting, I would save about 2.5 hours a week if I purchased a treadmill. That's 2.5 hours a week, either to be with my family more, 2.5 hours a week so I could serve more, make a difference with all the things that I'm doing. So again, I defaulted to my values. My emotions say, I don't want to go on that thing because it's boring and it sucks and it's way more fun to be outside. But the reality is, I go on it. I haven't ran outside in, I don't know, like 9 months, but I'm on this thing regularly. I got my bike with a trainer. I got weights here. I got a TRX machine. I've got all my stuff around me, and really my training and exercises move through my lifestyle now, where when I do a lot of my work on my computer here, and literally like every 40 minutes, I take a break and pump out sets and reps. It's like, I got a chin-up bar over here. One day I counted how many pull-ups I do, and I do about 250 pull-ups a day when I'm in my office working. And at one time, I'll only do 5 or 10. So I'll do 5 or 10, I'll come back and work, I'll go do 5 and 10. It's like I'm thinking, it allows my creative juices to flow. It's like I've set up my entire office to allow me to stay more connected, but I did that by honoring my values, knowing that when I'm moving my body, when I'm putting good fuel into my body, I'm the best version of myself. And I can't just move my body in the morning and expect 8 hours later to still be connected and whole. So I move my body throughout the day. Right now, I'm at my desk, which is a standing workstation, because I know standing's way better than sitting, and I feel more connected when I'm standing. So again, very, very regimented, but again, living my life based on my values. And I find more often than not, my feelings and emotions are aligned with my values when I'm doing this stuff. If I go out Friday night, have too many drinks, do you think Saturday morning I'm going to feel like training, meditating, visualizing, journaling? No, I'm not. That's when I default to my values. When I need it most, I default to my values. And I would say that for anyone.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's something we talk a lot about through the My Inner Guru program too. And I think it's a key component is for people to get clear on their values and link their wellness behaviors to their values. Because if we're not doing that, we can motivate ourselves for a certain period of time to do something. We can hire somebody to, empower or to convince us that we need to run or do whatever it is. But if we're not linking it to our values, it's going to fizzle out over time. The other thing I've found for myself too is just the congruence that when I got clear on my values, my wellness behavior became much more congruent to an authentic norm. And how that looked, for a while, I was convincing myself that CrossFit was quote unquote the gold standard size. And, and I was resisting it. And it was this last year that I just came to terms with. And it was like, that's just not my gym. That's not where I thrive.
Right.
And so, I took a step back and really, looked at who Norm is authentically. And I've been diving into Kundalini yoga this year, and it's like a trip, and it is so much more congruent for me. And, and so, just throwing that in there, that for everybody at home, the importance of values, and to get clear on that, because that's the rudder, and to use that as your rudder rather than your emotions. That's bang on. That's awesome.
Totally. Awesome.
So where do you suggest for people to get started in regards to their values?
I think if you want to know what you presently value, it's pretty simple. All you got to do is look around your house. Like, I'll give you an example. If you walked around my house, you'd come into my office, you see a boatload of like sports equipment and gear. Like, clearly you'd be like, this guy's athletic. I've got medals on my wall. If you looked at my bookshelf, yes, I still have books. You would see a lot of personal development books. You'd see a lot of books on entrepreneurship and business. So right away, without even me being here, like I always say, like, if, the internet man came here to fix my internet and just started walking around here, he'd be pretty certain what kind of person I am. If he went upstairs and then walked in our kitchen, he'd see a Vitamix, he'd see a dehydrator. If he happened to open the fridge, he'd see, a lot of vegetables, a lot of organic foods. He would not see many refined foods. He would not see many, refined carbohydrates or, junk food or anything like that. So like, I'd invite people to take a walk around their house and get an inventory. It's like, we have a really small TV because we don't watch TV, we watch movies. So they'd be like, versus, walking and seeing like, 100-foot screen in my living room. It'd be like, okay, well, clearly they're into TV, right? So like, you can kind of get something clear on where you presently are. It's not a judgment, it's just an observation. So, you look around, like, what do you see? Like, in your cupboards, what kind of books do you have? What's in your den or your office, or your bedroom, your living room? And that kind of, you may think your values are different, but you will surround yourself with what you value. So that's like a snapshot of where you presently are. And it's not a judgment, it's an observation. Because like me, you may look around and be like, sweet, that's awesome. Or you may look around going, shit, like, oh man, I can't believe like all this stuff is here. I never, imagined I'd end up here in life. So after you do that, I think it's getting crystal clear on your visions and what you want to create. Like, like people, New Year's Eve, New Year's, that week, they'll like, vision boards, set their goals, their intentions, and, what they're going to do for the coming year. I happen to do that every single day. Every single day, I reevaluate my goals. Every single day, I do something called priming the pump. I do it either through my meditation, through my visualizations, or my journaling. I'm big on journaling. I'm big on writing things down, making a physical proclamation. I've actually recently just come back to that, and I realize how potent and powerful it is for me. But I think about, where do I want to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And I look at every area of my life. I look at my physical health, mental, emotional, my connection to spirit and who I am, living, a connected, heart-centered life. But then I look at my family, my friendships. I look at business and entrepreneurship. I look at the things that I'm creating, and, I'm big on creating heart-centered businesses that make an authentic difference in the world. So, what's going to move me ahead and what's going to make me closer? And then in my book, I talk about this concept called the be, do, have principle. It's like a lot of people think that once I have something, then I'll start doing things and I'll become that person. And it's actually backwards. Physics says that, we have to figure out who our identity is, like who we want to become, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And we need to start being that person right now. Like, I'll give you a practical example. When I transitioned from being an ultra marathoner in a triathlon, it was 2009. And I showed up at the pool. I was not a swimmer. I learned to swim as an adult that year. And, I showed up in like boxers that were like down to my knees and begging. I looked around and what did I see? I see guys with Speedos on, totally shaved bodies. And I mean, I was fit, I was like, I was an athlete and things like that, but I was like, all right, I don't fit in, but I'm like, I'm not really a swimmer. Guess what I did when I showed up the next day? My entire body was waxed. I had a Speedo on, I had goggles, and I had a swim cap. I became a swimmer before I even knew how to swim. Mm-hmm. It's like I took on the persona and identity of what a swimmer looks like. Then I started to do the things that swimmers do. It's like, they show up with this bag of goodies like, fins or pull buoys and things like that. And then eventually I have the things that a swimmer does, which is I can actually swim really good. So, that principle is taken in every aspect of our life. So like, who's your identity? Who are you in the process of becoming? Then looking around your house and being like, would that person like, Cheetos and potato chips in their kitchen? Would that person like 100-foot TV in their room so they can veg out? Because, here's the science. Like, for example, research has actually shown that the more TV shows like sitcoms you watch during the day, there's a direct relationship. The more TV you watch, the higher your rate of depression. It's like, the science is pretty clear. And we can talk about biologically why that happens. But so, to be like, well, is that aligned with your vision? I mean, if your vision is to be a couch potato, all the power to you. But if your vision is to go out there and do something spectacular in the world, it's probably not going to happen by watching TV several hours a day. Mm-mm. So thinking about who you want to become, and as a result, creating values based on the identity of that person who's, your future vision. That's what I always do. In fact, that's why I prime my pump on a regular basis, on a daily basis, because I'm constantly tweaking, constantly changing what's around me. The concept that, you're the average of 5. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You're the average of the 5 most dominant conversations you have. You're the average of the 5, types of clothing that you wear every single day. Are you dressing like a bum every day? Are you dressing for success? Are you dressing so you have more certainty and power? Or and I'll give you an example. When I got married, I grew a beard because we had an Indian wedding. And I realized very quickly that I actually shave, not for other people, but for me. Because for me, shaving is like leaving your house without brushing your teeth. I just felt icky. It just felt like I didn't feel my power, my days. Like I pretty much shave 7 days a week. They're like, oh, it's Sunday, you shave? I'm like, yeah, because I want to have a good Sunday with my family, not feel like I haven't brushed my teeth all day. So, that just works for me. So, finding out what those things are for you and then just doing them, whatever they look like, and knowing they're going to be unique and special for you, but you really want to align your values with the person you're becoming, with your surrounding and the people, places, the things that, I always say this, Norm, life is difficult enough as it is. And, the more that we can simplify it, the more we can live aligned with our values, it just becomes that much more graceful, that much more in flow. Because the only way to crush our goals, the only way to create extraordinary things in life is growth occurs outside of our comfort zone. So we're in this bubble. This is my comfort zone. And, my biggest goals and values are way up there. I call it my North Star. And so all I need to focus on is on the next step that's going to get me one step closer to that North Star. I don't worry about the North Star. I set it and I forget it, because if I think about how I'm going to get there, I'll get stuck in analysis paralysis. I need to think about what's the one thing I can do today to move me a millimeter closer to my North Star. And that's what I do. I'm always thinking about, when I talk about journaling, visualization, meditation, and setting intentions for the day, I'm simply thinking about the one step. I'm not sitting here thinking about that big, audacious idea and dream. It's when I wrote my book, it wasn't like I wasn't dreaming every single day about being a best-selling author. It's like, okay, how can I write 10 pages of my book today on this chapter? First it was like, let's create an outline. I created my outline. Let's add some meat to the outline. I did that. And then it was breaking down. It's like, today I'm going to write 10 pages. Great. Tomorrow, 10 pages. Next thing you know it, 12 weeks later, my book was done. It's like the same thing. I just focused on the next step. And then when the book was done, it's like, oh, great. I need to hire a graphic designer and a photographer because I need to cover for the book. It's like, what is the next step? And, life is always guiding us because we don't have the perception, the know-how of how to create our big, crazy North Star because we haven't grown into that yet. But as long as we take the next step, we're on the journey and process of growing into that. And that's like everything. That's our health, our well-being. Like, we talk about diet and health. I'm not like, okay, you need to eat like 7 salads a day and you need to take spirulina and chlorella and your greens. I don't do that. The first thing I'd be is, first, let's stop bringing in the bad stuff. You go to McDonald's 5 days a week. Okay, now you're going to McDonald's 4 days a week. That 5th day, you're having a salad. Awesome. You do that for a month. Great. Let's go 3 times a week this month. It's like, let's stop putting in the toxins. And then once we start to change and replace that, you make small little steps. It's not like, okay, you got to be vegan. You need to detox. You need to cleanse. Analysis paralysis. No one's going to do it. It's like, what's the next step for you and that person? Just like I said about, in my practice, I've always met people where they are, but in my life, I always meet myself where I am. Where am I right now? And what's my next step with no judgment? So like, I retired from being an ultra endurance athlete in 2015. I can't do the races and workouts that I used to be able to do 2 years ago. If I started training again in 6 months, I'd be able to do them. But right now, I can't. It's like, we have this mountain here called the Grouse Grind. I've done the Grouse Grind in 30 minutes. I did the Grouse Grind on my birthday in November, and it took me like 47 minutes to do it, like 17 minutes slower than I just did it a year and a half before that. No judgment. I've been training. I did it in 47 minutes without barely any training. If I just put in a 12-week training block, I'd be able to crush it. Rather than judging myself, I was like, hey, that's pretty good for a guy who hasn't trained in a while. And I know I can always regain that fitness when I'm in a different phase of my life. But right now, that's not my next domino I want to hit down. So, that's a piece that I'd share with people is like, what's the next step that you can do that's within your comfort zone? At the edge of your comfort zone, stepping out of your comfort zone, but not so far out of it, just like right at the edge. So you get a little bit giddy, a little bit antsy, a little bit nervous, which we call excitement. I'm excited, let's move forward. Let's lean into this. I'm a little bit afraid. That's okay. You're supposed to be afraid. Life is not meant to be comfortable. And, I can't stress that enough because, a lot of people talk about like, taking Advil and medication and drugs. And I shared about the first 2 decades of my life. I'm 43 years old and I have not had a single pharmaceutical drug in my body in 25 years. No Advil, no Tylenol, no nothing. Totally. And, I've had bike crashes where I've broken bones. I've been at the hospital. I've been recommended to take drugs, even to have a surgery once and, opted out of it because I don't want any chemical toxins in my body because I understand that sometimes life is not comfortable. We've been domesticated to be in this world that the second we're uncomfortable, we need to do the fastest thing humanly possible to get comfortable again. It's like, I had to take the meds. No, you chose to take the meds. You don't have to take the meds. You choose to take the meds. So, let's get straight on that. And, if you can find a way to go deep within yourself and yet go into meditative states, I can actually release natural analgesic to help me be more comfortable in those times of being uncomfortable. So for me, a big piece too is learning how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in life. Because that's where growth lives. The title is, we talked about maximizing human potential, and I'm not about talking about pie in the sky ideas. I'm about setting those ideas, forgetting about them, then coming back to this present moment, think, what's my next step? How do I lean into this a little bit more? I'm getting a little bit scared here, a little bit frightened. One of my big things I'd say, Norm, is if I'm not getting scared and afraid every single day, I'm not living to my potential. Mm-hmm. So that was like a goal I made. So what am I going to do today that freaks me out a little bit? Because You have to. You got to get out of your edge. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And all of a sudden, what happens is that becomes comfortable. Then it's the next thing. That becomes comfortable. Then it's the next thing. Then you look back at your past 10 years. You're like, holy shit, I've done some really cool things in my life. And all of it was just by one little step moving forward. Because, people say, what's the secret? How do you maximize your potential? I'm like, that's it, really. It's like that one step. Because here's the deal. 99% of people, they won't take that one step. They'll move back into safety instead of forward into growth. And that's just it, because it's, I say like 90% of your success in life is right between here. Because once you believe it, you can do it. I always say, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you are correct. Because that'll influence whether you change a behavior, take action, move forward, or do something about it or not. It's like, it's so big. I'm like rambling on here.
No, you do. Awesome. I would expect nothing less from you tonight, Sukhi. So that's great. I've seen in my life, whenever I have asked that simple question of what is the next step, it reveals itself. It's like, it's so simple. And, it can take overwhelm and confusion and uncertainty and all of that. And if I just remember, okay, what's my next step? It reveals itself. And I know I can take that step. And I find once there is some momentum, then I get my confidence going and it kind of flows. So I love the simplicity that you just broke that down to. And, from somebody who's achieved great things in his life, for all of us to bring it back to just the simple, what is the next step? And how true is that if we're not pushing against our comfort zone, if we're not doing something scary every day, we're not growing. I just had a big meeting with my men's group tonight, and that was the number one theme of the, we had gotten a little bit stale, a little bit comfortable, and we got, it happens in life that we get into our routines, we kind of have roles with each other, expectations, and it was good, but it was just kind of lukewarm. And we'd been meeting for 7.5 years, if you can imagine, once a week.
Wow.
And, and today was like, pull out the whiteboard and let's draw it out. What do we need to do to take this to the next level and to stretch yourself a little bit? So right on. So everybody who's tuning in here tonight, this is we'd love to hear from you. If you got some questions, this is your opportunity to pick the mind of Sukhi Muker. A lot of people pay a lot of money to do that. And here's your chance to throw a question his way. We'd love to get some questions from the audience. And all right, so let me tune in. Typically, I ask a quote of BJ Palmer. As BJ was the developer of chiropractic, and he really espoused this concept of our innate potential and the bigness of the fellow within, which is what Sukhi has been alluding to all night. And when we look at BJ's life, it was absolutely extraordinary in how many areas he really was leading edge and broke new ground. And so I'd love to hear from you, Sukhi. What's one of your favorite BJ Palmer quotes?
Oh man. I have one in my office that, never doubt that, no, that's me. It's,
we got a loss of words from Sukhi Muker. Mark it on the board.
For BJ. I'm trying to read the poster actually in my office that I have. It's not the ones about change the world. The idea, it's something about an idea, how a small idea can change the world. I'm totally bastardizing it, but yeah, a BJ quote's not coming to me in this moment.
All right, excellent. Sorry. Do you have a favorite Sukhi Muker quote?
My favorite Sukhi Muker quote is Gandhi, and it's,
all right,
be the change you want to see in this world.
I'm right on.
And that's, for me, again, my inspiration, my drive is my girls, my wife and my 2 daughters, and, more so my 2 daughters and their generation. I just want to leave this world a far better place than I entered it. So how can I be that change? So I just want to show up as the best version of myself and inspire others to be the best versions of themselves in whatever way that is. Like, I don't think that, when you come to a place in your life, it's like, hey, I'm going to set out to be like, this or that, a person that speaks on stages or a best-selling author. I think that those are from out there, and that's ego driven versus, my entire life, Norm, since I graduated from school. So now the past, 15, 16 years, I've always focused on serving the people I've wanted to serve, whether that's in practice, whether it's through mentorship, whether it's part of some of the other businesses that I've been collaborating on. It's like, how do I create an extraordinary product or service to create such a powerful difference in someone's life? I never focused on the accolades. I never focused on the money. And man, that's easier said than done, because we know we leave school, we have debt, and man, the default is to see people as dollar bills, but I never went there because I focused on truth, and I focused on the principles. I focused on serving people. I never sold out, meaning, I never did any BS. I never, used fear tactics or any other crap to coerce people in any shape or form. I focused on them. I focused on loving them. I focused on serving them, because that's the world that I want to live in. And that's the world now that I want my girls and their generation to be raised in. So for me, it's being the change you want to see in this world, from every day to every moment to every moment and every moment. And, for me, you see me at home, you see me on the street, you see me in my office, you see me on the stage, wherever you see me, you get the same version of me. You're not getting a different version. It's, a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve. I'm doing my best. I don't have all the answers, but I will do my absolute best to be of service in any shape, way, or form that I can. And I just love people. And I think that we live in a world that is more ironically disconnected because of this device than it's ever been. And what the world needs is, it needs more heart, it needs more laughs, it needs more smiles, it needs more conversations, it needs more connection. And I believe that I can play a really small part in making that difference.
Beautiful. All right, so we're going to just touch base with our audience. And here we've got Debbie Tiller says, you are such an inspiration. I agree, man.
Thank you, Debbie.
That's awesome. And definitely walking your talk. Hey, we've got another good question here. This is from Kim. We've been talking a lot about stretching, pushing against our comfort zone and doing something that is a little scary for us. Now, what about, and Kim asked this, what about being super scared? Not just a little scared, but super scared. And I think some people do live with, some pretty big fears in their life.
Yeah.
So ideas and suggestions to tackle those big fears.
Okay, so I always use this analogy that I learned recently, and it's called the domino effect. And here's the science. We all know what a domino is, and a domino can knock down the next domino as long as it's 50% larger or smaller. If it's 51% larger, it won't knock it down, okay? So imagine this, imagine a domino 2 millimeters big, and you knock down that domino, the next one's 50% bigger, the next one's 50% bigger. By the time you get to the 13th domino, you have a building like a large condo. Then if you take that condo and go 13 more, you have the largest building that's on planet Earth. So to me, I think of my big audacious goal as that 13th domino. Like, that's what I want to create. But here's the deal. I don't focus on the 11 dominoes in between. I just focus on this little domino here. And if I focus on that domino, it's right at the edge of my comfort zone. What happens is we think about this big audacious dream, which is that domino, and you can't knock it down because you're right here. You can only knock this one down. So for me is I focus on what I want to create. I come back here, and here's the deal. If you focus on how you're going to create this, you will be in analysis paralysis from fear. But if you focus on this and worry about what you want, but not how you're going to do it, knock that one domino down, the next one will appear, and you'll know how to trudge forward with that. It's like you can't have it figured out. And this actually comes from the best entrepreneurs on the planet. These are This is from people who've created multi-million dollar companies, like hundreds of $1 million in their companies. This is the same concept that they use. They don't think about the next domino. They don't think beyond the first domino there. So the only reason, if you're a lot scared, you're stuck here. You're stuck in how land, and you won't know how until you get there.
Great. Awesome. Some real great bits there. Again, I'm hearing from you just the practicality of breaking it down, the small actionable steps.
Right.
Like
It's huge. It's huge. And like this is the way that I'll say it for people, like with one of the partnerships I'm involved with now. I say, you know what? All we have to do is get one person. Because if we can get one person, we've done something right, then we can get 10. If we can get 10 people, then we can get 100. If we can get 100 people, we can get 1,000. If we can get 1,000, we can get 10,000. If we can get 10,000, we can get 100,000. If we get 100,000, we can get 1,000,000. I'm not thinking about 1,000,000, even though that's our North Star. I'm just thinking about 1, and then 10, and then 100. And then developing your systems, your processes to serve that many people and evolving and growing that way. That's how I've done everything. I didn't realize I did that, but then someone pointed that out to me, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. Because for whatever reason, me in my life, I never ever, and it's a gift. It's like I never got hung up on how I was going to create this. I was always like, I'll figure it out. I just see that question there, the fear of failure. Here's the thing in life is that anything worth doing has the risk of failure. And so if it's not worth doing, there would never be any risk. It's like, if I just like walked across my office here and hey, Norm, check this out, dude. I'm going to do this crazy thing, man. I'm going to walk across my office, and I walk across, you can be like, dude, you just walked across your office. But I'm like, if I'm 50 stories high and there's a tightrope from building to building, I'm like, hey, check this out, Norm. I'm going to take 10 steps across this tightrope, and there's no trampoline at the bottom. You're going to be like, oh, hey, let's see this. It has risk, because if there was no risk, there'd be no benefit. This is a natural dualistic principle of life, and you can't take it away. There's always risk in life. It'll always be there. There's risk getting in your car and driving down the street. I can show you statistics of how many car crashes, how many head-on collisions there are, and how many people die from car crashes. Because actually driving a car, it's kind of risky. But we manage that risk because we know we need to get from point A to point B. The same risk that we have in driving our car that we overcome on a daily basis is the same risk that we need to overcome in moving forward with that. And I'd say that same risk is actually coming from focusing on this area in between. Because when you look at the next domino, there's not a lot of risk. In fact, the risk is so minimal on the next domino. But you're thinking about what you have to give up to get here. That's where analysis paralysis and the risk embodies you. Again, it's going back to that simple step right there.
Yeah, really great. So it's been an awesome chat, and I'm sure we can continue talking for another couple of hours tonight. And many of you want to continue talking with Sukhi for more. So Sukhi, for those of you who want more from you, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in Vancouver area, you can go to my practice site. It's optimal-living.ca. From the other side, you can go to, if you're not in Vancouver area, you go to drsukhi.com, and that's pretty much where all my goodness hangs out online. And from there, I have a few other places that you can get a hold of me too, but drsukhi.com is essentially my hub that gets you to everywhere else.
Yeah, tons of great material on there. I visit it often. And for everybody who's been tuning in tonight, if you've liked what Sukhi's been putting down, throw us some hearts, throw us some thumbs up. And you can also share this on your wall by simply hitting the share button. And that passes this message on to more people, which, if you look on Facebook world, there's not a lot of consciousness on there for the most part. And so we're doing our bit to bring the world some light. And Sukhi definitely did that tonight. I appreciate your time and your ongoing vision and your commitment to just challenging yourself, my friend. You're absolutely an inspiration and a bright light in my life. So I thank you for walking the talk, my friend.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, the innate in me blesses the innate in you, and everybody else out there on Facebook land. This is Dr. Norm reminding you to attune to the wisdom within and to challenge yourself, stretch your comfort zone. Okay. Take that next step today. Awesome. Okay, everybody, be well.